Hello again. So we're back. So I'm going to try and record this and do the voiceover at the same time and see how that goes, because this should be nice, quick and easy card. So this is the stamp set that I'm going to be using. Like I say, it's a digital stamp set, so when you purchase it or when you add it into your cart with free with another purchase, you will get it as an instant download. So you'll be able to download that as soon as your purchase has gone through. And what I've done is I've resized it in my either in a Word document or any software that you might have already on your PC, so that it fits to an A6 card blank. So you can see that I've resized all of my images so that they will fit on this size card. I've also done the same with the sentiments that come with the set and resized those so that they fit nicely onto this shaped card. And I've printed them a couple of times so that I can use them again. And this is one of the beautiful things about using Digi stamps, is that you can print them as many times as you want. It's so quick and easy to do, and you can also size them to any size that you would like as well, because if you prefer larger cards, you can use them for that as well. So I've just cut this down to size so that I can start colouring one of my images. And the image that I'm going to use today is the little mouse and the trick or Squeak sentiment. So, and I'm just going to colour this little guy up now in shades of grey. So I'm going to use my T3 Copic marker first, and I've printed this onto super smooth paper. My printer doesn't take heavyweight cardstock at all, so I do have to print on paper. So this is about, I think, about 100 to 120 GSM, and it's a really nice quality of paper. So it doesn't feel too thin, but obviously you will get your Copic markers transferring through to the back of your paper. So I'll just show you that you can see the bleed there, but that's pretty standard with card as well. So we'll just put in our first layer of colour down, and just leaving a little bit of space to make his ears pink, and just popping that colour on there nice and loosely before we go in with the T5 to add a little bit of shading and dimension. So pop that under his chin and then just under there, and then we'll just add a little bit of a curve to his face by just adding some darker colour around the outside, and then this will give the illusion of a bit of a shape to our little guy's face. And then I'm going to go back over that with the lighter marker to blend out those harsh lines that I've left. Now, because this is paper and not card, there may be more danger of oversaturation, because I do like to work lightest to darkest, so my paper is pretty wet, so I'm being careful not to go too close to the lines, because I don't want to bleed over. And then just applying my very darkest colour just where the shadows would be the deepest. So I'm not really going to use an awful lot of this, because again, like I say, I don't want to bleed too much over, but we can correct that if that does happen. So we're just popping that there. Like I say, it is pretty early at the moment, so so I'm surprised I can even really see where I'm colouring. I had forgotten that the clocks went back today, so it's even earlier than I thought. So yes, so everybody else is still pretty much asleep. The cats have gone back to bed. It's too early for them as well. So yeah, so there's just me about at the moment, which makes for a nice quiet bit of crafting this morning. So yeah, so we're just going back over some of those bits where I wanted it a bit darker, and then using my lighter pen just to blend those out. So I've had a tiny little bit of a bleed there, which I'm not too concerned about because you can't really see it, but I can use my blender pen just to poke that out a little bit. So we will just do that, just poke that out. There you go. And then I'm going to use a little bit of pink. So I've got an R21, which that might be a little bit dark. That's, what colour is that? Sardonyx. Ooh, sounds exotic. And then I've got an R20, which is a blush colour, which I think I'll start with the R20 because that's a little bit paler. He doesn't want bright pink inside his ears, does he? So just pop a little bit of that pink in the colour. And you can see, because the paper is quite wet here, some of the blue of my mat underneath is showing through, so you don't get a true colour until it's dried. But yeah, that's looking really nice. So now I want to colour the little pumpkin, because I want this to be a nice brightly coloured pumpkin. So again, same process, just laying down my lightest colour first, and then I will build up to my darkest. So just very lightly using the tip of the marker, because it is a small area, and like I say, I don't want it to bleed. And then applying the darker and richer colour to the areas where there would be shade, but also trying to create that illusion of a curved object as well. So, and then again the darker colour still over the top of that. Again, just under his paws there, and then we'll go back over that darker colour, blend that in, and finally the lightest colour again, just to blend those final bits, nice and easy. And then for the stem, I'm thinking that maybe a bit of the E35, just colour the stem in nicely. And then for his tail, so the tail probably wouldn't be exactly the same colour as his body. So I'm going to use a little bit of the E11 to colour that. But then I am going to add a tiny bit of grey over the top of that, just to add the shadows. So it's kind of an off grey kind of colour. There we go. And just blend that in back over with the E11, and that creates the illusion. So one of the things that other tips if you do happen to bleed a little bit, which I have done just there, that blender pen didn't really take all of that out, is to use my jelly roll pen just to go over it. But I'm also going to use that in the eyes, and then a little bit of shading on the nose, and then I think we'll just add a little bit down the front of the pumpkin there, which looks really cute. So that is the only image that I'm actually going to use for this particular card. So that's the colouring done, so we'll pop that to one side, and then the next bit that I'm going to play with is my background. I'm going to do this directly onto my card blanks. So I'm using the grids on my mat here to help me line this up as straight as I possibly can. So I'm just going to line that up there, and then I'd like just the top portion of my card to be inked. So again, I'm just going to use the grid lines as a bit of a guide to help me do this nice and straight, because I'm not the best at straight lines, that has to be said. So let's just use this. So that's lined up against there, it's lined up against that line, so let's make sure that that is fully straight against that line. Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to do my background now. And I also don't want to get any of my ink on this back portion, so because I'm a very messy blender, I'm just going to pop a little bit more tape across the back just there. Okay, so using my blender brush, I'm going to start with, in fact I'm going to use this blender brush, and I'm going to start with some bundled sage, and I'm going to just lay a bit of this colour. And these brushes are so easy to use, they're so simple, you don't have to apply a great deal of pressure, and look, we've just got a really beautiful background there. So that's enough colour in my background, I think, for me right now. I'm just going to use my microfiber cloth just to give that a little bit of a rub, and then I'm going to use this this stencil here, which has got lots of different autumnal type leaves on it, just to create my background. So this is just one that I had in my stash. I couldn't tell you which company it's from, I'm really sorry, but I do really like it, and I'm going to use some different coloured distress inks on the background just to create a nice kind of autumnal background. So so I think I'm going to start with these are new ink pads to me. I've not used these ones before, but the crushed olive looks great, forest moss looks really good, so I think I'm going to start with a couple of these in my background, and because it's a little bit yellowy, this one, I'm going to use the brush that I've used on more of my yellow based greens, so I'm just applying a little bit of that to my blender. Oh, look at that, that's such a lovely colour. And I'm not going across all of my background, I'm just going to pick out places where I just think a little bit of spot of that colour would look really nice. So I'll just pop that on there. Yeah, I really like that colour, that's a lovely colour. And then for a bit of contrast, we're going to go with some of the forest moss and just apply that in a similar sort of way, just randomly in some areas. There we go. And just dotting it onto my pad and then pushing that through the gaps. Really nice, nice colour again. So again, just wiping off with the microfiber cloth, we'll take the excess off there so that these are usable again. And you can see that even though I had a different colour on the back of there, it's not impacted the colour that we've just used. So that's fantastic. So I think now we need to brighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to use a bit of carved pumpkin. Again, this is a new set that I bought recently, so I'm excited to use this. Now, I do have a yellow blender brush that I've used previously, but I feel like that that might be impacted by the orange. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, I'm back with a new a new brush. So yeah, so we're going to apply some of this beautiful orange. Oh, this is so good. And this is just going to add a really nice pop of colour to this background. So just going to the areas that we haven't already had any colour and just pushing this through. And the just while we're finishing the background here, I don't know how many of you've used Digi-stamps before, or I know some people they're not quite sure what to do with them, how to use them, a little bit scared of them. If you're a traditional stamper, it can seem quite different, and in some respects it is, but if you just craft as you would normally, you can get the same effects that you would get with stamping. You just have to think about the size of card that you're going to be using and experiment with the resizing and the different sort of paper or cardstock that works with your printer. But then you will find that you've got so much, you get so much out of the Digi-stamps, because like I say, you can print them as many times as you want, you can resize them. They're great for giving to your children or grandchildren, for them to be able to play with, so that you're not using your best stamps or papers, you know, that they're going to be able to just take them away and play with them to their heart's content. So right, so this is the reveal now. So let's take off the tape, and I really like the way that that's come out. It looks really, really nice. So let's see if we got this pretty straight. Yay, I think we did. So that's created such a lovely looking background. Look at that. Yeah, I really like that, and that's got the autumnal feel that I was going for. So going back to our little image here, this is a bit of a tip for when you're using Digi-stamps. So I'm just going to cut loosely around our image here. Now, because my printer, and your printer might be a bit more robust than mine, doesn't work well with cardstock. This, I feel, is quite flimsy. I like to stamp onto 300 GSM paper, so that when I use my image on my my card front, it feels quite it will sit on the foam pads and it will feel quite robust, but when it's in paper it doesn't have that same feel. So what I like to do is to back it onto a bit of card. So this is actually really quite thin cardstock actually, but that makes it easy to cut. So you've also got to think about, you don't want to be creating more hard work for yourselves. I'm also going to back my sentiment onto it. So I've printed these out already, and I'm going to use the Trick or Squeak sentiment. And I think I like this one here. I think this one is a good size. So same way that I've just done, I'm going to just snip this out, leaving some space around the outside, so that we can trim it down nicely. But we're just going to take that out of there, and then I'll just move that to one side for a minute so that you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just stick these onto my card stock here. So I'm going to use some liquid glue, because that will keep it adhered much better. And because we can see where we've coloured, I can see now where I need to apply my my glue, and I'm going to make sure that I've gone over all of the edge so that my edge doesn't peel up. So you can see there that I've gone right to the edge of where I've coloured, and a little bit over even, because I'm going to leave a little white border when I cut her out. So let's turn that over, and we'll just pop her or him up there, press that down a little bit, and just get my tissue, so we've had a little bit of a squidge of the glue, but that's fine. And we're just going to let that dry for a minute. And then I'm going to do the same with the sentiment. So I'm going to make sure that I've got enough of the glue around the edge so that I've got enough for a border. So you can see that I've gone much wider than the actual sentiment in the middle, so that when I cut it out, I'm not going to have any gaps. So we'll just stick those down. Now they will take a little second to dry. So because I don't want to cut them out immediately while they're still a little bit wet. So we'll just give that a little minute to dry. Okay, so I've cheated a little bit and I used my heat gun because I'm too impatient. But normally I would have let that air dry. So I'm just going to cut these away from the backing card like that. We'll put that to one side because we can use that a bit later. And now I'm going to fussy cut my little cat, I nearly said. No, it's not a cat, he's a little mouse. Right, so I'm just gonna so probably speed this bit up for you. But I am moving my paper rather than my scissors. Which I am told is the best way to get smooth cut. And if you could see my face right now, the concentration is intense. Okay, so just working my way around that. Obviously the whiskers are going to be tricky, so we don't have to go right the way around, but I do want to do a little snip there and then around the bottom of the pumpkin, and then we can just tidy up some of the bits where we've not quite got it closely enough. So up there, around the tail. Sometimes it's good to just go in at a different angle, because then you're not going to bend the paper or the card. So again, just gradually whittling that away. It is worth taking your time with fussy cutting. As impatient as you might be, you do get a much better result if you just take your time. The last thing you want really is to ruin the quality of your card because you've not taken your time to do a good job when you're fussy cutting. It does make a big difference. To you've spent a lot of time colouring as well. I think that's the other thing, is that you spent a lot of time colouring. Don't ruin it by not doing a good job with your fussy cutting. So I am just taking extra special care around the tail here, because I do want to go into this gap. And what I might do with this little image is use my craft knife, but I'm hoping that I won't have to do that because it's a big enough area to get my scissors into. But I am just taking a lot of care when I do that. So last little bits. Yeah, I think that's nice. If I could just chop that a little bit there, I think that looks great. Okay, so I'm happy with him. So now my sentiment. So my sentiment, I may be able to use a die for. Let's have a look, see if we've got a die that will fit this. This might fit. Yes. So this is the die from the Hello Nesting Rectangles. You could use a trimmer if you don't have the die set. So sorry if my head's peeking into the shot there. So I'm just going to use a little bit of washi tape that I've already used previously, so it's nice low tack. Lining that up so that's pretty straight. Sorry if my head's peeking in. So we'll just pop that tape on there so that it's nicely stuck down so that it doesn't move around in on our very, very curved plates that we've got here. And I'll just pop this through the machine. So this has been through the machine now, so we can just carefully take that off, and that's made for a really nice looking little sentiment banner. What you can do now, and what I sometimes do, is pop this through again so that we get a nice neat cut at this edge, but I am going to try and just snip this off. There we go. Sometimes I'm not very good at that, so that's why I like to put it through again. So our little let's get these little guys stuck down. So I'm going to pop some foam pads on the back, so we're just going to pop a big one there and then a couple of little ones on his ears. So I'm just going to snip some of these foam pads down and use my fabulous pokey tool. Let's get the backings off. What would we do without our pokey tools, eh? I'm lost without mine. So I think we'll pop him there, and then the Trick or Squeak goes really nicely there, I think. So I lined him up all right. And then, so for the back of here, I think that is too wide, but I do have a nice bit of shaker tape that will just sit really nicely in the back of there. And this will, if you put in a nice bit of foam tape on the back, it will straighten out any warping that might have occurred from the glue drying. So we're just going to pop that there. Trick or Squeak. And that is our card pretty much done. You could add some little embellishments if you wanted, a little bit of gems and things, but I actually think that I really quite like that just the way it is. Nice and simple, really quick, and really cute to send to someone for Halloween. So there you go. I hope you liked the video. I hope that that's given you some ideas of how to use your Digi stamps. And there'll be more videos and more inspiration coming soon. Take care. Bye bye now.